How fun, guys. We just spent
3 hours
with Christian Schwartz.
This is
So
amazing.
fun.
the
In his
founder
home.
of NCD, and we asked questions about how everything started, and he shared with us stuff that I don't think he had the chance to ever share with someone else.
It was fascinating. It's fascinating to hear the whole story of how God worked to launch this vision so that it was not just, I mean, it was an idea seated in his mind, but when he shared it with his friends, how they thought it was unbelievable, impossible at that time, 1993, when they sat in this restaurant right here.
This very place they were sitting 32 years ago in 1993, in May 11, 1993, they were sitting here.
And Christian shared the idea of launching a global research project to study churches to determine what makes a church healthy. And those with him, some of them couldn't imagine it.
Yeah.
So he's a visionary for sure.
And here we are 32 years later and
Yes.
seeing how God has multiplied and spread national church development around the globe.
And began a movement, really,
Yeah.
a movement toward healthy church.
And actually, I think it was really fun as we talked that this movement has gone way beyond church growth, and it's actually become a church health movement. And I think that's
Number one, in many seminaries, his original book is still used 30 or 29 years later as a textbook, right?
yeah.
In different countries.
In fact, in my doctoral program, his name was mentioned long before I even imagined sitting in his home hearing the story. It's pretty fascinating.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I had his base book in, it was a church growth class at Fuller Seminary.
Yes, yes.
And in the context of growing churches, this is like a foundational book, and then all of a sudden, I think God's used it as a way to kind of help the church refocus. Instead of saying, how do we grow? How do we become healthy? Mm-hmm. And a byproduct of health is growth.
Yes.
And I think that's such a healthier model to understand it all.
It's fascinating to think that when I was doing my doctoral program, to me it's fascinating. I started out saying because I had options and I wanted to go a track, a focus on church growth. And it's interesting that halfway through my program, they changed it to church health. And to know that change in some ways was influenced by Christian Schwartz is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And in some ways, it has grown worldwide, but in some ways it seems like we are just in the beginning of what NCD can actually do. Now that it's no longer just a theory, but both of you, for me, represent practical examples of what NCD can actually do in practice in the field, how church that becomes NCD minded and NCD wired can actually experience beautiful turnaround.
Mm-hmm. And I was sitting there as Christian was talking, I was thinking that when we look back at the history of natural church development, I think it can be divided up into several stages. And I really believe we're entering into another stage where, we came through the global crisis of 2008 through, really it lasted, I don't know, what do you think, 2013, 2014?
Yeah.
It was kind of a lingering thing, and NCD was impacted by it.
Yes, heavily.
And so I feel, and then COVID hit, and now we're beyond that. Thank God for that. And I think we're really moving into a new stage of expansion and growth in ministry effectiveness.
And in some ways, maybe the loss of momentum was helpful because originally there was enthusiasm and excitement to embrace it. However, many churches would look at it as a program, and they didn't know how to work with that. So the results, the long-term results, were not there yet.
Yeah.
And so it took crushing the momentum and to be able sort of to start all over, like when I took it from my predecessor. I was starting, I didn't have any contacts to headquarters of any denomination. We were basically starting from scratch, and we still are just scrubbing the surface. But I believe this time when it goes and God opens the door to have it more publicized, and I don't know in what ways today things usually start by something being viral or something happening online, right?
Yeah.
That will open door again, and we will be ready and prepared in a better way to really help churches to start the process that brings transformation, not just enthusiasm about idea.
And I think that the word process is important, because I think what happened, this is my opinion, I suppose, but what Christian was doing was so closely connected to the formulaic approach of the church growth movement that it was hard to distinguish the difference. And maybe this global crisis that happened in 2008 and following, maybe it helped redirect that. And so now the focus can be more on the natural part of natural church development, that if you put certain things into place in your church and you grow toward health, then there is natural development as a byproduct of that.
I like that.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you guys. When we're talking Christian, great conversation, so fun to just be in his home and just
incredible.
chat, you know. What's one or two kind of things that stuck out to you about that conversation?
Well, first I had to get past the awe of I'm sitting in Christian Schwartz's home in his study where he writes these books, and his books are piled everywhere, and you know, there's Dietrich Bonhoeffer's library,
I had the
books from
same
his-
thought, Tim.
It was just a little overwhelming, honestly, and I felt this awe. But then it was amazing that we moved beyond the awe of Christian Schwartz to the person of Christian Schwartz and the friend of Christian Schwartz, and we see the passion of the man in his heart for Jesus, his heart to reach lost people, his passion for these atheists that he's connecting with in his new book. That to me was very, very powerful, to see the man behind natural church development.
Yeah.
And I admire him precisely, as you mentioned, for his humility, for his humanness, for his eye-to-eye way. He's not the one to be admired from a pulpit, standing somewhere, creating this bubble around him.
Yeah.
But when you see him, he acts with you just as you are friends who knew each other. And yet, in his mind, God has really given him some bright ideas.
He's brilliant.
Can compete with some of the previous theological, German theologians like Barth or definitely Bonhoeffer.
For sure. I think if the Lord tarries, and I think in 50, 100 years from now, 200 years from now, people will still be talking about Christian Schwartz and his contribution to Christianity and to this concept of church health.
Didn't you also love there's just us sitting around the table, but Christian's passion that exploded and he's not well, physically he's not well, but it did not contain him. His passion exploded out as he shared these things. There was a heart thing for him, and he was passionate about it, and I thought that was excellent.
Yeah, I love
Inspiring.
that. I love that. My favorite part was when he was talking about the Trinitarian compass and how that all came about. That's so fascinating to me, and so I still think the Trinitarian compass is one of the most underutilized but yet most brilliant concepts when it comes to church health, and it has implications all over the place.
Did it make you want to go to bed tonight and say, God, speak to me that way?
Yes.
Because, we know Christian Schwartz's background. We know he's not blue-driven from his heritage. I mean, the supernatural, the experiential. And for God to wake him up, to speak to him in a dream and wake him up with this concept, this idea, and then for him to put it on paper and then realize the theology behind it and
in the years to come.
it didn't happen right away. It was a journey, a little bit of a process.
And the way he shared how he was asked to present it somewhere, and he still had no clue how does it connect to all the 8 qualities, how it was evolving step by step.
Yeah.
That was beautiful, really beautiful. And the same thing with the energy paradigm. again, how he would even make a statement that it's not theologically or biblically based, but we see it happening more experientially. And then he discovered through the huge dictionary, or what was
yeah,
it?
it was a
Commentary,
theological dictionary, yeah.
where there was just a mention of any, without any implications, of the words in Greek original, which basically directly translate energy.
And I can relate to that. I've studied the same word, and it's just there's just a little bit written on it, but to understand, really, there's a whole paradigm behind it. It's fascinating. Well, I loved our time with him. It was very inspiring.
So we were blessed, and I hope that it will bring some fruits in us and through us as well.
Yeah. I look forward to the next chapter. I think it's going to be exciting and fascinating.
And God's taken us there.
Yeah.
And as we are committed to God's plan, I think that God's going to keep pushing us forward in beautiful ways.
And we just want to see the church grow healthy. We want churches to be healthy and realize NCD is a great resource, I think, to help people with that. Not only to evaluate church health, but to inspire it.
Right. Some people may argue, and how do you define health, right? And they can discuss with you. So what I also see side by side going along with this idea is, you mentioned that to become more organic, meaning in harmony or synchronized with how God set us up in the beginning, the whole nature, the whole organic world, living world, including humans who then became rebellious, and then they had their own ways, basically. And we, despite of being Christians, are still in so many ways doing our own ways. And even running the church using our own minds and thoughts and ideas and concepts. But becoming healthy in a way means to return back to the status of being in harmony with how God would have us originally. And growth is not just because Jesus said it, or because it makes pastors look good, when they have growing church. But growth is so part of God's design. When God gave life, the seed is sown and it grows all by itself.
And it brings such joy in the church.
And it's part of being alive. So if you are alive, you grow. That should never be even disconnected or even discussed. It's a natural thing. I like that. And
if it's healthy, it grows all by itself.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's that simple.
And the consequence is amazing.
And
We've
so
seen it in our church.
We can no longer debate about the definition of what's healthy, but by what you mentioned. If it's healthy, it grows by itself.
Yep.
And if something grows by itself, it must be healthy.
Yeah. That's good.
Yep. I love, here in Denmark, you see all the trees outside, and it's just much more green than Southern California where I live. And so, but you just think about the nature that is represented all around us, and that the church is a lot like that. Like God ordained the church to function like plants and the things that we're observing all around us, and that if that tree up the window has some sunlight and some water and some dirt, it all by itself grows.
So the church has to say, all right, so what is the environment of a healthy church? And let's make sure we order that environment so that the natural byproduct is health.
And we should not be mistaken. It doesn't grow forever. Then it dies. But before it dies, it's plants, there are seeds as products, and some multiple other things will grow, other plants. So.
Sure. Yeah. I have to tell people this all the time. Just because it's healthy doesn't mean it indefinitely grows, though, right? Sometimes it grows to a mature space, and the result then is that's sending out seeds, right? And that's one of the reasons why I love church plants, where the church grows to a certain size, it matures, it develops, and then the purpose for it at that point, and that's what I want to do in my church, is for seeds to send out. So you send out a cluster church plant here, over there, and then because it's matured, it's grown to the size that God's calling that particular church to grow to. I love that concept.
And maybe we can even think of church growth in terms of generations. That some churches have hundreds years, of age, but something. Well, some trees have hundreds years of age, but when we look at the human life and span of human life, then every generation basically is called to start their church. Whether they use the same building or not, it doesn't really matter. But to live our life, even as leaders, that it's temporary. It will not be here forever. To build, some of the mega churches would build empire, and you can imagine, the worries that their successors have now to run it and to keep it going. I think if we think less of the human means of having beautiful large buildings and that kind of thing, and more in what will be left after we're gone, are we actually living our faith in such a way that it will get caught by the next generation?
Yeah.
I like that. I like that a lot.
So NCD in some ways is a way of life that still is ahead of us, and it will take some time before we get it under the skin completely in such a way that we can multiply.
Yeah, I can't wait to see how God does this. I think it's going to be exciting.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Really
Yep.
appreciate the conversation.